Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Merritt in the Morning, edition number 17. He is Jim Merritt, 30-year state senator for Indiana from the northeast part of Indianapolis. I am Brad Klopfenstein. I am president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber. I own a beer brand and I once ran for lieutenant governor. Nobody remembers.
Mr. Lawrence.
And I am Mr. Lawrence.
About Lawrence.
Hashtag why I love Lawrence. So this morning we have a very special guest, candidate for mayor of the city of Indianapolis, Jefferson Shreve.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning. Thanks
Welcome,
for having me on the
Lawrence.
show. Well, I've been up here quite a bit lately.
Yeah, you got a lot of support up here.
Yeah, well, I lived on the south side of Lawrence for a period of my life when I was a kid. I went to IPS 103 and
I didn't know
113.
that.
Yeah, my mom and dad built their first new house in Lawrence.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I lived just south of here when I was a little kid.
Well, thank you, number one, for being here, but also for running. Because politics is a contact sport. And you took this on where I knew that you were kind of on the back nine and you were working, and having Mary around, and life was really good. But we're going to talk about
Jim, let's hold this up. Yeah, every time it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
You are watching Merritt in the Morning. This is live on Facebook right now. We're also recording this. This will be up on our YouTube channel later on today. We're coming to you live from Cafe Audrey's in beautiful Fort Harrison, open for breakfast and lunch 7 days a week, dinner Wednesdays through Saturdays.
I really like their breakfast. They have an egg sandwich that is undeniable. It's got a croissant, and I mean it's very good.
So yes, the food's fantastic. Come here in the evenings, Wednesday through Saturday. And when you come here, after you stop by Stockyards Bank and Trust with locations at Binford Carmel, downtown Plainfield,
Thank you,
and
Paula.
St. Francis Hospital. You can have an Alps Sprout beer while you're at Cafe Audrey's and several other fine retailers. In fact, I had a couple last night. So, now let's go back to wherever we're supposed to go back to.
Boy, this is truly live. We got customers coming in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is great.
We love the door.
So one time, what former Marion County recorder walked through the door as we're doing this, and Jim pulls him in and says, "Come on, you're gonna be a guest for 5
John
minutes."
Von Ars, former Marion County auditor, was at a meeting, breakfast meeting. He starts walking out. I go, "Hey, come over here." He sat with us and talked about Volunteers of America, which is a great organization.
Well, I didn't think I was gonna be in a regular studio setting, but
Yeah. So,
Well, we like our door.
yes, we like our door, we like our slogan.
Slogan.
Actually, we adopted that. That pre-existed us, and we just said we want to be in front of it.
Mhm.
So,
all right.
and Cafe Audrey has been gracious enough to be our host from the beginning on this. So here we are. So tell our viewers, just give a little background about yourself, just so they know. I assume most people have at least heard of you. They might not know about you. So we'll start there.
Yeah, well, I think people have heard of me at this point. We've spent a lot of money to introduce the candidate.
That's gonna be my next question.
But I'll tell you what, as I go around, why? Because they didn't know me before.
Yeah, well, we're giving you the reason why you're running.
Yeah, but as I go around Marion County, that there is that facial recognition. If I do door to door or whatnot, it's not a cold intro. It's like, oh, you're that Steve guy. Steve or Shreves or
Yeah.
Shreves or that sort of thing. And so, yeah, Jefferson Shreve, I'm running for mayor. And so the reception varies somewhat based on the township or the part of town, but generally it's been good. And you know, through the first several months of the campaign, it was just, you're the guy running for mayor, which was striking because we had a 10-person field when we started. And so to be the guy running for mayor when there were men and women running for mayor was sort of satisfying. And I don't think people even realized that the incumbent was running for anything. You know, I mean, he hadn't emerged at that point. And so that was a different experience. But I feel like the reception as the candidate has been positive, and something that if you haven't played in the space, and I've been a 30-year businessman, not a full-on politician. It's quite an adjustment in terms of people recognizing you, coming up to you, putting eyes on you as you come in and through. My wife is really attuned to it, and so it's just, it's learned behavior. So, why am I doing it? Indy needs it. Indy needs new leadership. Indy needs new direction. And yes, this does line up with a point in my life where I can bring that experience that I've got, that comes out of 30 years of growing an organization and a decade of being involved in and out of city government, and bring something better from a leadership standpoint to the city county building in our county than what we have. This is my hometown. I mentioned that I lived for a few years in Lawrence Township. Most of my family's out of Perry Township. My wife's out of Washington Township. And so, I mean, I was born here in Indy. She was as well. We're sort of homegrown products, but have some footing in other parts of this county. I'll tell you another thing that as a candidate has been striking, and I know you experienced this too. You're running in one county, and that sounds like it would be a pretty manageable proposition. 403 square miles. I did last night, as I do most days, sort of plot out where I'm going to be over the course of 2 days. Starting out in Perry, up to here, Keystone at the Crossing, down to 56 in Meridian, out to Oak Landon, over the Pike. I mean, you cover a whole lot of terrain. And every day as I'm moving around, I'll look up and I'm heading down some street, some road in this county that I was born into that I hadn't been down before. It's been an extraordinary experience.
Yeah. And you're only 30 minutes from home.
Usually.
Yeah.
Usually.
Great.
Usually,
If you're running for governor, you could be in New Albany one day and South Bend the next.
well, I kind of used to do that in my storage express business because I had locations. I had locations in 45 counties, and I was in a half dozen states. And so, and my trips were usually day trips, and so I could wake up in one, and bounce around like that. And so that wasn't unfamiliar. But just
He's ready to run Indianapolis.
Yeah,
There's no question.
but just running across this city with what we have from a construction standpoint,
Mhm.
the road closures, kind of cross 38th Street or whatnot, you can't always do it in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. I don't think you can get out of Lawrence.
But that's growth.
Yeah.
That is positive.
That's growth, but we got to
Most
manage.
countries, most states would love to have our problem.
Yeah, but you got to manage growth. You've got to be smart about it. And I don't think that we're always tactically smart or efficient in the way we manage that infrastructure.
Oh, I would agree with that.
And I don't think we coordinate sufficiently with NDOT or DPW with the city of Lawrence. I mean, the coordination, the handoff.
Having a Republican governor for the rest of time, it would be great to have a Republican mayor that could work with NDOT, that could work with DOC, they could work in concert with our state government, because it's a lot like the May riots. The governor could have shut down Monument Circle, War Memorial, and the State House, and not allow anybody to touch it because it's state property.
Mhm.
It would be great when you're mayor and you could work with a Republican legislature and you could work with a Republican government.
And our governor often do all that. I mean, the governor stood ready.
You don't offer, you do.
You do.
Because you own the property.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Because the other guy isn't doing what he should do.
I couldn't even get a hold of him. I don't think.
Jefferson, you and I have been friends for a long time. Mary, your wife, plays an enormous role in this campaign. She is so positive. She is so likable. She knows so many people. She's from Indianapolis. So this is for the both of you. She's not here, but I'm sure you can say it. What has surprised you about this campaign? I always, when I was running, there was always something that somebody would walk up to me and say something really from left field. What has surprised you about this campaign?
Yeah. It's the number of voices that are in the candidate's head. There are a lot of smart people, a lot of people with opinions, and the challenge is to take it all in and distill it into some actionable, manageable ideas, because you just can't take it all. I've been surprised at the number of people that, in the interest of being helpful, are in my head suggesting that we do X, Y, and Z. But you're right, Mary's number one in my head,
And that's where it ought to be.
as Susan would be with you.
Mhm.
And what our spouses face, it keeps us grounded,
Of course.
even sane.
Mhm.
And part of my challenge is keeping her grounded through the
She's
end of
all
this
in for you.
campaign. Oh, she is.
How did that conversation go with her where you said, I'm thinking about taking enough money out of her fortune that we could have bought a nice beach house in the Caribbean and I wanna basically.
January 28th.
Yeah, the January 28th, and you won't see me again for the next 9 months. What do you think?
She said no.
You didn't think you'd have this type of.
No, she said no. Actually, we had this conversation on a beach. I'm making money. I mean, this is.
On vacation.
Yeah, we were on the beach and I had this conversation and she said no. But with your spouse, it's a hard no versus a no with some plasticity or not.
Or two.
She said no again.
Okay, you got 2 strikes against you at that point.
But it became a sort of, oh, what the hell?
Why not?
Yeah.
She, if she didn't think that I could do something better than what we've got, it would have been a hard no.
Mhm.
But Mary thinks I'm a smart guy, Shreve.
Well, I would say you are a smart guy, so.
He's right. Mary's been right a lot more than she's been wrong. One of the issues, everybody, your campaign was consumed, your staff was consumed with the gun issue regarding the crime issue. Let's set the gun issue aside for a second, but the rest of the crime, the proposal that you put forth was really good public policy proposals. People say sometimes that it looked like Hogsheads. It might look like Hogshead, but you've got to install it like Jefferson Shreve would install.
Yeah.
That is the whole issue there.
Yeah, it's not the same. I believe in lawful gun ownership, and that's not what I believe. I mean, this just is constitutionally there. But we have a different view as to the constitutional order of things. He could come out with something as he did after the General Assembly adjourned long session and put something forward that was toothless and meaningless. And he's an attorney. I mean, he should know better. But this is political posturing.
But what I'm getting at is Jefferson Shreve, even if it's the same proposal or positives, proposals or the idea of a policy would be a lot different than setting sail with Johan said. I think a lot of your policies that you promoted let's set the gun thing aside, the whole idea of keeping us safe. It's who's in the seat, who's making those decisions, who's getting the judges
And who is truly in the seat, who's turning up, who's on the job, who is accessible, who is managing that big complex organization and truly is responsible.
Yeah.
The buck stops at that desk.
And you're gathering the prosecutor, the judges, the sheriff, IMPD, all together in a public policy pro safety, public safety program. And it's all about the guy in the seat, the person in the seat.
Yeah, the mayor is the central actor, if you will. I mean, you've got to have someone that the citizenry in this community puts forward that will lead the charge in ensuring that we have a safe and civil community in which to live, play, raise our children. The mayor doesn't directly control everything, but the mayor's got the outside voice from which to corral the other stakeholders. And in the case of public safety, ensure that public safety ecosystem works together.
Klopp, I really like his advertisement where the mayor is at the podium and says, this is it.
Those are an impactful commercial.
I wish that you would have put that on May 10th and just done it on reel.
Hold that thought. We're going to reset here real quick for people who might just be joining us. You are watching Merritt in the Morning with your hosts, Jim Merritt and Brad Klopfenstein. Our guest today is Jefferson Shreve, candidate for mayor of Indianapolis. We're brought to you by Outsprout Beer. So very, very Bavarian. Ask for it by name. We're also brought to you by Stockyards Bank and Trust. Thank you very much, Stockyards. They have locations 71st in Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, and in St. Francis Hospital on the south side. We're coming to you live as we do every other Thursday from Cafe Audrey's at beautiful Fort Harrison. Hashtag food at the fort. So now back to our guest. What is your?
I'm still here.
Yes, you are. You were actually up in the corners. Yes. So your vision for Indianapolis. Where do you see Indianapolis 4 years from now, 8 years from now? And then as kind of a secondary, how do you envision your interaction with the excluded cities like Lawrence, Beech Grove, and Speedway and Southport?
Yeah, so we got to start growing again from the core. We're hollowing out at the core. We've got growth on the donuts in the periphery. So central Indiana is the only real part of the state, save for around Allen County, that's growing, that our job creation, our economic development comes from central Indiana. But that's not sustainable if the core isn't strong. So what do I envision? What am I gunning for in terms of progress over the next 4 years? Is a vibrant, once again, growing Marion County. It's 25% of our GDP, but it has been flatlined. It's been at 1% or less for more than a decade. Our population growth has been flatlined. I know you had Sue Finkham on recently. Carmel's taken off, Fisher's, Whitestown. But if we don't grow from the epicenter of the state, we got a problem. And so I'm going to work hard and fast with the mayoral leadership in our surrounding counties, because we recognize that a rising tide will lift the central Indiana economy, and the central Indiana economy will lift the Indiana economy. And that'll be part of my mission in working with the legislators from the roughly 40 truly rural counties down at the other end of Market Street, and helping them understand why investments in Marion County in central Indiana makes sense for Indiana.
But you know, they say, and I think it's true, I do know it's true, over 30% of the revenue that goes into the general fund of the state budget comes from Marion County. And so if you're flatlined, if you're decreasing, you've got a real problem with state revenues. And so as Marion County goes, Indiana goes.
Well, you know, we've long been a net contributor. Some folks in the rural counties feel like Indianapolis.
Oh, there's a bias.
Yeah,
I've felt that for 30 years.
but we're a net contributor.
Well, that's why it's important to have a vibrant Marion County club and a vibrant Lawrence.
That's true.
Yeah.
So let's pivot over to crime. Obviously, you mentioned you have the bully pulpit. You would be in charge of police and fire and all public safety. How do you plan on getting a handle on the crime and the drug issue? Because those are often one and the same issue. What is your plan moving forward to make Indianapolis safer?
True. Crime, drug addiction, drug overdoses, mental health, housing and homelessness issues, food insecurity. There are a lot of interconnected root causes of crime. The mayor's primary responsibility, core responsibility, is to provide for a safe and civil city. It's the function that we tax our citizens the most for, and have the responsibility to deliver upon in ways that the Hogshead has not over the last 4 or 8 years. The mayor doesn't control everything directly, but he or she has the singularly greatest ability to influence the other components of the system to work together to get their job done. And so my charge will be in part, if lifted into this office by the citizens, say to our prosecutor, you know, Mr. Mears, our IMPD cannot do its job if you don't do your job. So his relatively small office needs to do its job. So the force writ large can do their job. Because they are so frustrated by the lack of execution on the prosecution of those that they pick up, take in doing the active work of policing that they signed up to do, and the inability to get that done. The problem isn't fiscal. The problem is a lack of leadership from the 25th floor. And that leadership needs to extend beyond just the IMPD and IFD and EMS, but over to the prosecutor's office and to cajole, if you will, the members of our judiciary to be consistent in their sentencing, and to get the sheriff's department to do those functions that the sheriff's department has historically and properly been charged with doing that they may not be. But the whole thing needs to work together if we're going to make this city safe.
So the political reality is you're going to have a Democrat council. And
Yeah.
most of all the other countywide offices are held by Democrats right now. How is your ability to reach across the aisle and work with people from the other party?
Well, here's where I think I'm sort of time tested. Having served on the council, my first stint, Maggie Lewis was our president. Second time around, Bob Boschley was and still is president. The council committees were led by Democrats. I never felt like I'd have to deal with a Democrat council. I would simply work with them as I did before, and would work materially more so with them than I experienced as a member of council in terms of the interaction between both Mayor Ballard and Mayor Hogshead. I think it's important that the mayor truly engage with the council members to advance an agenda that collectively we can agree upon to move the city forward. And regardless of your political jersey, when it comes to local politics, we may be looking through the world with a different set of spectacles, but I do think that we generally want the best city possible. And so, you know, I always enjoyed working with Maggie Lewis on Metro and Economic Development, for example. So this is not an unknown. I've had that experience in working with the Democrat members of the legislative and fiscal side of the House. And I'm sure I can.
You know, we were talking earlier about infrastructure. And, you know, the joke is that the potholes stop at 96th Street between Marion and Hamilton County. And it's not so much a joke.
Yeah, exactly. Just a reality.
Yeah, you've been.
Have you noticed that they've been doing a little repaving though along North Meridian?
Absolutely.
That project sure to wrap up real soon by election day.
There's the fall program just right in time with paving and reconstructing, but it goes both ways. I remember when Bill Hudnut and Susie Hudnut were stopping by and having dinner with my mom and dad, and Bill Hudnut bellows to me, being mayor of Indianapolis, nobody's thanked me for paving Spring Mill Road today, and that's where we live, Spring Mill Road, as a joke. But everybody thinks about infrastructure, about the idea of these 100-year-old streets that we keep on just paving over. In your campaign, have you talked much about, you know, a cohesive, cogent plan that you're working with NDOT at the state level, and how you could readdress our infrastructure in the city of Indianapolis?
Yeah, we've got $1 billion structural deficit to bring our city's infrastructure up to just an acceptable level. We give some love to the arterials coming up and down Meridian Street, as we're seeing just here of late. But our secondary neighborhood streets never see that investment. In Perrytown,
Yes.
oh, I mean, we have streets that people all around this county live on that haven't seen a lick of investment since
It's like time forgot.
1970.
The street for the time forgot.
It's awful. And so
The mayor forgot.
we can't solve that without working with the General Assembly to rationalize the funding formula. And you know, that's something we've been jawing about for years. But here's what's changing. Marion County is not doesn't stand alone as a metropolitan county in Indiana. Carmel,
Greenwood, Zionsville, Westfield, they're all
Hendricks
becoming a little
County.
more urban.
They all have 6-lane roads that are funded in the same way as Jay or a Park County would be with a 2-lane road. And so we've got a bench that we can build to advocate for not just Marion County, but regionally to rationalize the road funding formula. And yes, I mean, I had genuine, how are we going to figure this out conversations with people like Representative Pressel on Roads and Transportation Committee, Representative Baining, who's the senior Marion County member, is to beyond just the kind of stuff we've been yapping about for a whole long time. What are the pathways to truly figuring out how we're going to fund the inequities that we have in infrastructure investment and maintenance in central Indiana? So,
Yeah, well, Mayor Hogsett doesn't have the credibility to go out in central Indiana to the donut or collar counties to get that done. So it's very important to have a Republican as mayor of Indianapolis.
so I don't know if it's credibility or just lack of engagement. He has not been there in the room, working those relationships, developing that coalition to get it done.
I rarely saw him around the state house.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And coming from the legislative side, you know how important that is to actually to build those relationships with that coalition, to build that voting block
Trust,
to get it done.
credibility, everything.
Yeah.
That friendship between the mayor of Indianapolis and the rest of the state is so very important.
Yeah, I think to be an effective mayor of the city is in part to be advocate, lobbyist almost in chief. It's got to be part of your job. And another part of it is being a salesman.
Great Howard would come over and sit in my office and eat my M&Ms.
Well, was that effective?
I mean, he got a lot done, the state house, but he would just be entrenched at the state house representing Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And
I think that visibility is important.
Exactly.
So let me ask you, along the lines of transportation infrastructure, Indigo and public transit. I haven't heard, maybe I haven't looked for your position on public transportation in central Indiana and what does success look like for the red line? The purple line runs right by, is going to run right by Cafe Audrey's here. They got the blue line coming. What is success for those projects and at what point do you pull the plug on those?
Well, I don't think those projects have been demonstrably successful so far. The red line came down through my council district. So I saw that early on, and I saw the red line with the pace of construction drive some businesses along Virginia out of business because it took them forever to get some of the BRT stations constructed. It certainly has been a challenge on North College. We're tearing up the bus stations that were built just a few years ago because they didn't engineer the concrete aprons that the bus come to a restaurant properly. It's
real efficient,
wasteful, too time consuming, too slow. We have essentially no fare mechanism. This thing was never going to be the whole bus rapid transit model was never going to be self-funding. We were just gunning for 30% coverage, and there's no effective fare collection structure. And it's just extraordinarily expensive to operate, especially when you consider how few people actually use it, ride the system. We're short on drivers. The reliability of the schedules is low. We've got these Chinese-made buses that never worked as planned. Yes, they're fully electric, but they're reliant upon diesel-powered generators to juice them up so they can stay on course. The purple and the blue line would be powered by hybrid, not fully electric buses. And so some of what we lauded or hoped for in terms of environmental efficiency isn't going to be there. But my biggest beef with this system is that it was perhaps the right system for 1950s or 60s in Indianapolis, and such an expensive, costly investment in an era where citizens want point-to-point transportation, and where I'm convinced we have options to deliver that at a lower cost point and with less disruption than what we have right now.
Well, in the forties, fifties, sixties, we had the interurban. We did have.
Yeah.
And so you're right. It's interesting. You talk about Indigo. You talk about that monorail between hospitals downtown that
Yeah.
is used now. There have been a lot of tries. When we passed the legislation allowing Indianapolis to have a referendum on this issue. One of the financial brains in the Senate actually created a model saying that instead of this infrastructure, we could buy so many vans where people could almost, it was like an early Uber situation, and it would cost like half as much.
Yeah.
But the federal government with the $90 million that they sent, they wanted concrete. They wanted a structure, they wanted a system, and it was the wrong one.
Well, the federal government in this ultimate wisdom isn't always ultimately wise.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the case. Some cities, including some that we consider to be pretty left-leaning or progressive, have moved away from trunk line urban transit to electronic vouchers, needs-based vouchers for people to use for point-to-point transportation on Uber or Lyft, because it's less expensive.
It is.
So the citizen gets a better product, a better outcome without the disruption to the road reconstruction and at a lower cost.
And transportation issue, IPS kids get on the Indigo, or not yet, onto the red line to go to school.
Yeah.
So I mean, and transportation issues will haunt us forever.
It will, until people start looking at it, saying, what is the cheapest way to get people from point A to point B in an efficient manner? Until that's the lens we view things through, it's gonna be expensive and inefficient. Jim, we're running out of time, so do you have final questions for our guests? I know it's been a very quick half an hour.
Yeah, I number one, thank you for running. The Republican Party needs a strong candidate. The city council needs a strong candidate. Indianapolis needs a mayor who understands the purse, that understands public safety, that understands infrastructure, but more than anything else, Indianapolis needs someone in the seat of being mayor that knows how to administrate, who knows how to run a railroad, and you're the guy. And we're very much appreciative that you're here today, because you're a very busy man, and there's just a few days left, and people are voting now. That's one thing that, Pop, we've got to talk about. 1 minute. The Republican Party has done a disastrous job, and I was a part of it for a couple of years. And just recently, I'm really talking about is you don't have to vote on election day. And we don't urge people to vote now.
Yeah.
We're talking October 19th. People have to go vote now.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for your traditions of election day. And the Democrats have it up on us because we never emphasize that we need to get out our base before election day.
So my public service announcement is early voting is open at the city county building now. It will be open on October 28th in all the townships. So the other 8 townships.
Plenty of time, plenty of opportunity
Yes.
to do it.
So yes, be sure to check and see where you can vote early. You never know when something might come up on election day.
And not often.
So yeah, don't vote off. So would like to thank our guest, Jefferson.
Thank
Shreve.
you.
Appreciate you coming out. So
That's to Mary. She's a big part of this.
She is.
Thank you, Mary.
So thank you all for watching. If you were watching on Facebook, appreciate you tuning in. You've been watching Merritt in the Morning with your hosts, Jim Merritt and Brad Klopfenstein. We've been coming to you from Cafe Audrey's in beautiful Fort Harrison, open for breakfast and lunch 7 days a week. Dinner Wednesday through Saturday. Thank you very much to Stockyards Bank for sponsoring our show. They've got locations at 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, and at St. Francis Hospital. Thank you to Alps Brow Beer. Ask for it by name, and available at fine local retailers, including Total Wine and More. So stop in there if you want
Growing
to.
all the time.
Yes. So thank you all for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks. And our guest for sure this time will be Dave Colt, co-owner of Sun King Brewery.
Fantastic.
And we will be talking beer. So we'll
Excellent.
get excited. That might be one where we might have to start a little early.
Start a little early.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.